The bustling alien marketplace was a chaotic symphony of sights, sounds, and smells. Alien merchants hawked their wares, their voices blending into a cacophony of guttural growls and high-pitched trills. Jack Harper, a human scavenger with a knack for finding value in the most unlikely places, stood in front of a stall, holding a piece of broken tech in his hand. The alien merchant, a hulking Krauger with a face only a mother could love, glared at him. "This thing looks like it was built by a drunk Krauger and powered by hope," Jack said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I'll give you 5 credits, and that's me being generous." The Krauger snorted, a sound like a clogged drain. 10 credits, human. Take it or leave it." Jack rolled his eyes and tossed the credits onto the counter. "Fine. But if this thing explodes and takes my ship with it, I'm coming back for a refund." As he walked away, the sound of an auctioneer's voice caught his attention. Curious, Jack made his way through the crowd to see what was being sold. The auctioneer, a wiry alien with too many eyes and not enough patience, stood on a makeshift stage, gesturing to a figure standing beside him. "Next up, we have a Luminaris female," the auctioneer announced, his voice booming through the marketplace. "Empathic abilities great for, well, nothing. But hey, she's decorative." The crowd laughed, and Jack's eyes narrowed as he took in the sight of the alien woman. She was tall and slender, with skin that shimmered like starlight and eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light of the marketplace. But what really caught his attention was the look on her face, a mixture of shame, frustration, and defiance. "Do I hear any bids?" the auctioneer called out, his voice dripping with mockery. "No? Anyone? Come on, she's practically free." Jack stepped forward, his hands in his pockets. "I'll take her off your hands." The auctioneer's eyes lit up with relief. "Sold! To the human with questionable taste." Jack ignored the jab and approached the Luminaris woman. She looked at him with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. "Why would a human take me in?" she asked, her voice soft but laced with bitterness. "Even my own kind abandoned me." Jack smirked, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "Let's just say I have a thing for lost causes. And who knows? Maybe you'll be useful in ways no one expects." The Luminaris woman, Zyra, as she would later introduce herself, blinked at him, unsure whether to be offended or intrigued. Before she could respond, the auctioneer handed Jack a collar. "Here, take this. It's an emotional dampener. Not that it works very well, but hey, it's free." Jack took the collar and glanced at Zyra. "Well, this is going to be fun." As they made their way through the marketplace, Zyra couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this human would be different. But that hope was quickly dashed when she accidentally triggered an emotional outburst in a nearby alien, causing them to burst into tears. Jack laughed, a deep, hearty sound that echoed through the marketplace. "Well, this is going to be interesting." Zyra sighed, her shoulders slumping. "I told you I was useless." Jack's grin widened. "Useless? Nah. You're just differently functional. Come on, let's get out of here before you make someone else cry." As they walked away, Zyra couldn't help but wonder what she had gotten herself into. But for the first time in a long time, she felt a glimmer of something she hadn't felt in years: hope. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The interior of Jack's ship, the Rust Bucket, was a chaotic mess of salvaged tech, half-eaten food wrappers, and questionable stains that Zyra didn't want to think too hard about. She stepped inside, her nose wrinkling at the smell, a mix of burnt wiring, stale coffee, and something that vaguely resembled cheese but probably wasn't. Jack tossed his bag onto a cluttered table and flopped into a chair, kicking his feet up onto the console. "Welcome to the Rust Bucket," he said, gesturing grandly to the mess around them. "Home sweet home. Or, well, home functional home. Mostly." Zyra stared at the chaos, her glowing eyes wide with disbelief. "Do humans always live like this?" Jack shrugged, reaching for a half-empty cup of coffee that had probably been sitting there for days. "Hey, it's called character. Besides, I'm a scavenger, not a maid. If you're expecting a 5-star resort, you're in the wrong place. Zaira sighed, stepping carefully over a pile of loose wires. I wasn't expecting a resort. But I was hoping for something less likely to give me tetanus. Jack snorted, taking a sip of the questionable coffee. You'll live. Probably. Anyway, make yourself useful. There's a lot to do around here. Zaira frowned, her pride stinging. I told you I'm useless. My powers are uncontrollable. I'm more of a liability than anything else. Jack raised an eyebrow, setting the coffee cup down. Everyone's useless until they're not. You just gotta find your thing. Now, how about you start by fixing that? He pointed to a broken coffee maker sitting on the counter, its insides spilling out like mechanical guts. Zaira blinked at him. You want me to fix a coffee maker? Yep. Humans run on coffee. No coffee, no functioning human. It's science. Zaira hesitated, then approached the machine. She had no idea how it worked, but she was determined to prove she wasn't completely worthless. As she poked at the wires, Jack leaned back in his chair, watching her with an amused smirk. You know, he said, most aliens I've met are all about efficiency and order. You Luminaris are different. Zaira glanced at him, her hands still tangled in the wires. Different how? Well, for starters, you're emotional. Like, really emotional. Most aliens I've met are about as expressive as a brick wall. But you? You're like a walking mood ring. It's kind of refreshing, actually. Zaira's cheeks flushed a faint shade of blue, the Luminaris equivalent of a blush. I can't help it. My species feels emotions more intensely than others. It's both a gift and a curse. Jack chuckled. Yeah, well, curses can be fun. Keeps things interesting. As Zaira continued to fiddle with the coffee maker, she accidentally crossed 2 wires she shouldn't have. There was a spark, a loud pop, and suddenly the machine shot out a burst of flames, narrowly missing Jack's face. He stared at her, his eyebrows raised. Well, that's one way to make coffee. Zaira stepped back, her hands raised in surrender. I told you I'm useless. Jack laughed, a deep, hearty sound that filled the small space. Useless? Nah. You just turned my coffee maker into a flamethrower. That's not useless, that's innovation. Now we can roast marshmallows while we drift through space. Zaira groaned, burying her face in her hands. I'm never going to live this down, am I? Nope, Jack said, still grinning. But hey, at least you're trying. That's more than most people do. As the hours passed, Zaira found herself slowly warming up to Jack's odd sense of humor and laid-back attitude. She tried to help with other tasks around the ship, but her lack of technical knowledge led to more comedic disasters. At one point, she accidentally activated the ship's emergency alarm while trying to fix the lights, causing Jack to spill his coffee all over himself. You know, he said, wiping coffee off his shirt. If you keep this up, I'm going to start thinking you're doing it on purpose. Zaira winced. I'm sorry. I want to be useful. Jack's expression softened, and for a moment, the sarcasm faded from his voice. You're trying. That's what matters. Most people wouldn't even bother. They'd just sit around feeling sorry for themselves. But you're out here, breaking my stuff and setting things on fire. That's progress. Zaira couldn't help but smile, a small, tentative thing. You're not like other humans I've heard about. Jack raised an eyebrow. Oh? And what have you heard about humans? That you're reckless, arrogant, and have a strange obsession with, what's it called? Coffee? Jack laughed. Guilty as charged. But hey, we're also resourceful, adaptable, and great at finding value in things everyone else throws away. Like you, for example. Zaira's smile widened, and for the first time in a long time, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as useless as everyone thought. And maybe, just maybe, this strange, messy human was exactly what she needed. As the ship's systems suddenly began to flicker and fail, Jack's grin faded. Oh. That's not good. Zyra frowned. What's wrong? Jack tapped at the console, his expression grim. We're being tracked. And not by the friendly kind of aliens. Zyra's heart sank. What do we do? Jack's grin returned, sharp and determined. We do what humans do best, improvise. And maybe set a few things on fire along the way. The ship's alarms blared, red lights flashing as Jack scrambled to the controls. Zyra stood frozen in the middle of the chaos, her empathic senses overwhelmed by the sudden surge of tension. Jack glanced at her, his usual sarcasm replaced by a sharp focus. Zyra, snap out of it! He barked, his voice cutting through the noise. We've got pirates on our tail, and if you don't pull yourself together, we're both space dust. Zyra blinked, shaking off the emotional fog. Pirates? Why would pirates be after us? Jack smirked, his fingers flying over the console. Probably heard I've got something valuable on board. Little do they know, the most valuable thing here is my charm. Zyra rolled her eyes, but the tension in the air was palpable. The pirate ship loomed on the viewscreen, its jagged hull bristling with weapons. A voice crackled over the comms, deep and menacing. Human vessel, prepare to be boarded. Hand over your cargo, and we might let you live. Jack leaned back in his chair, his grin never wavering. Cargo? You mean the broken coffee maker and the alien who cries a lot? Be my guest. The pirate growled, clearly unamused. Enough games, human. Prepare to be. Jack cut the comms with a flick of his hand. Yeah, prepare to die, blah blah blah. Heard it all before. He turned to Zyra, his expression serious. All right, here's the plan. You're going to do your emotional thing, and I'm going to do my human thing. Got it? Zyra stared at him, her glowing eyes wide. My emotional thing? What does that even mean? Jack shrugged. I don't know, make them feel things. Sadness, anger, uncontrollable laughter, whatever works. Just keep them distracted while I figure out how to get us out of this mess. Before Zyra could protest, the ship shuddered as the pirates docked. Jack grabbed a wrench from the floor and tossed it to her. Here, take this. Just in case. Zyra caught the wrench, her hands trembling. I don't know if I can do this. Jack's grin softened, just for a moment. You can. Trust me. The hatch hissed open, and a group of pirates stormed in, their weapons raised. Zyra's heart raced, her empathic powers surging uncontrollably. The lead pirate, a hulking brute with scars across his face, sneered at her. What's this? A Luminaris? Useless. Zyra's fear turned to anger, and without thinking, she unleashed a wave of emotional energy. The pirates froze, their expressions shifting from aggression to confusion. One of them suddenly burst into tears, dropping his weapon and clutching his chest. I just wanted to be a dancer, he wailed. Another pirate started laughing uncontrollably, doubling over as tears streamed down his face. The lead pirate growled, trying to shake off the effects, but his movements were sluggish, his rage diluted by Zyra's power. Jack seized the opportunity, darting forward and disarming the pirates with practiced ease. He moved like a man who'd been in more fights than he could count, his movements sharp and efficient. Within moments, the pirates were disarmed and incapacitated, their weapons scattered across the floor. Zyra stared at the scene, her chest heaving. Did I do that? Jack grinned, wiping a bit of sweat from his brow. Yeah, you did. Turns out you're not so useless after all. The lead pirate groaned, struggling to sit up. You'll pay for this, human. Jack crouched down, his grin turning predatory. Oh, I'm sure I will. But not today. He grabbed a piece of duct tape from the floor and slapped it over the pirate's mouth. There. Now you're just as useless as you thought she was. Zyra couldn't help but laugh, the sound bubbling up despite the chaos. Jack stood, brushing off his hands. All right, let's get these guys off our ship before they start crying again. As they worked to eject the pirates back to their ship, Zyra felt a strange sense of pride. For the first time in her life, her powers had been a strength, not a weakness. She glanced at Jack, who was humming a tune as he worked. "Thank you," she said softly. Jack looked up, his grin softening. "For what?" "For believing in me. Even when I didn't believe in myself." Jack shrugged, his usual sarcasm returning. "Hey, don't get all mushy on me. We've still got a ship to fix and a galaxy to explore. Plenty of time for you to set more things on fire." Zyra laughed, the sound light and genuine. "I'll try to keep the flamethrowers to a minimum." As the pirate ship drifted away, Jack turned back to the controls, his hands moving with practiced ease. Zyra watched him, a newfound respect blooming in her chest. This strange, messy human had seen something in her that no one else had: potential. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like she belonged. "So," she said, breaking the silence, "what's next?" Jack grinned, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "Next? We find out just how far this ship can go. And maybe get some real coffee while we're at it." Zyra smiled, her heart light. For the first time in her life, the future didn't seem so bleak. And maybe, just maybe, she wasn't so useless after all. The human colony was a stark contrast to the chaotic mess of Jack's ship. Clean, orderly, and bustling with activity, it was a testament to humanity's ability to carve out a home in the most unlikely places. Zyra stepped off the ship, her glowing eyes wide as she took in the sight of humans and aliens mingling together, their laughter and chatter filling the air. Jack stretched, his back popping as he groaned. Ah, civilization! Nothing like a hot shower and a decent meal to make you feel alive again. Zyra glanced at him, her expression skeptical. "You're going to take a shower? I didn't think you knew what those were." Jack smirked, ruffling her hair. "Watch it, Starlight. I'm still your captain." Zyra swatted his hand away, but there was no real heat in the gesture. She was too busy taking in the sights and sounds of the colony. Humans were everywhere, their energy and enthusiasm almost overwhelming. They were loud, messy, and utterly unpredictable, everything Zyra had been taught to avoid. And yet there was something about them that drew her in. "Come on," Jack said, jerking his head toward a nearby building. "Let's get some food. I'm starving." The building turned out to be a diner, its walls covered in neon signs and posters advertising everything from alien delicacies to human comfort food. Jack slid into a booth, his grin widening as a waitress approached. "What'll it be, hon?" she asked, her voice warm and friendly. Jack didn't even look at the menu. "Double cheeseburger, extra fries, and a coffee. Black as my soul." The waitress chuckled, jotting down the order before turning to Zyra. "And for you, sweetie?" Zyra hesitated, her eyes scanning the menu. I don't know. What do you recommend?" The waitress smiled. "First time on the colony? How about our galactic platter? It's a little bit of everything, perfect for trying new things." Zyra nodded, her stomach growling at the thought. "That sounds good. Thank you." As the waitress walked away, Jack leaned back in his seat, his arms stretched across the back of the booth. "So, what do you think? Not bad, huh?" Zyra looked around, her expression thoughtful. "It's different. Everyone seems so happy." Jack shrugged. "Humans are good at finding joy in the little things. Food, music, bad jokes, it's what keeps us going." Zyra's gaze lingered on a group of humans singing loudly and off-key at a nearby table. "Is this a mating ritual?" Jack burst out laughing, drawing the attention of the entire diner. "No, that's karaoke. It's hard to explain. Just don't ask them to stop. Trust me, it's better for everyone if you let them finish." Zyra smiled, the sound of Jack's laughter warming her in a way she couldn't explain. For the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged. Not because of her powers or her usefulness, but simply because she was there. When the food arrived, Zyra hesitated, unsure of how to approach the strange assortment of dishes in front of her. Jack didn't have the same reservations, digging into his burger with gusto. "Go on," he said around a mouthful of food. "Try it. You might like it." Zyra picked up a fork and tentatively tried a bite of something that looked like mashed potatoes but tasted like nothing she'd ever experienced before. Her eyes widened. "This is amazing." Jack grinned. "Told you. Humans might be messy, but we know how to eat." As they ate, Zyra found herself opening up to Jack in a way she hadn't before. She told him about her childhood, her struggles with her powers, and the loneliness that had followed her for so long. Jack listened, his usual sarcasm replaced by a quiet understanding. "You're not alone anymore," he said when she finished. "You've got me. And, well, the rest of humanity if you can stand us." Zyra smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I think I can manage." After dinner, they wandered the colony, taking in the sights and sounds. Zyra marveled at the way humans and aliens coexisted, their differences celebrated rather than feared. It was a far cry from the rigid hierarchies of her own people, and she found herself drawn to the chaos and vibrancy of it all. As they walked, Jack's calm buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression turning serious. "Looks like we've got a job. Some colonists need help with a malfunctioning generator. Think you're up for it?" Zyra hesitated, then nodded. "I'll do my best." Jack grinned, slinging an arm around her shoulders. "That's all I ask? Come on, let's go save the day." As they made their way to the generator, Zyra couldn't help but feel a sense of purpose. For the first time in her life, she wasn't just surviving, she was living. And it was all thanks to the strange, messy human who had taken her in. When they arrived at the generator, Zyra's empathic abilities proved invaluable, helping her sense the source of the problem and guide Jack as he fixed it. The colonists thanked them profusely, their gratitude warming Zyra in a way she hadn't expected. As they walked back to the ship, Jack turned to her, his grin wide. "See? I told you weren't useless." Zyra smiled, her heart light. "I'm starting to believe you." Jack laughed, the sound echoing through the colony. "Good. Because we've got a whole galaxy to explore, and I'm not doing it alone." Zyra's smile widened, her glowing eyes shining with hope. For the first time in her life, the future didn't seem so bleak. And maybe, just maybe, she wasn't so useless after all. As they boarded the ship, Jack raised a cup of coffee in a toast. "To the useless things, and the humans who take them in." Zyra raised her own cup, her heart full. "To new beginnings." And as the ship's engines roared to life, Zyra knew that her journey was just beginning. With Jack by her side, she was ready to face whatever the galaxy had in store.